Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Inside Track, brought to you by William Hill, where we are back for more action. We're going to be reviewing the weekend that sort of was. You're going to have to bear with us. Luckily, we had Cheltenham on Friday, as well as some graded action at Cork on Sunday that we can discuss. Our anti-post race in focus this week is the Arkle novices chase. So to see exactly what the betting has done in the interim from when we discussed it before, and how John Bond fares at the head of the market. And we're also going to be looking ahead to the weekend that hopefully is going to be, we're going to be talking hypothetically here, that we are going to get Ascot and Haydock to go ahead, because the long walk hurdle meeting at Ascot still looks fantastic on paper at this moment in time. And I'm going to be joined by a stellar panel yet again. James Mackie is back for more after his brilliant work on episode 1. And we have the addition of Andrew Thornton, William Hill colleague of mine, as well as racing legend. So great to have you, Andrew. How are you?
I'm good, Kate. Yeah, sadly, Sammy Twiston isn't with us. He's at the top of a mountain somewhere in France, taking advantage of the miserable weather we're having over here. But I'm sure he's enjoying himself over there. I did manage to have a quick word with him this morning. He was on a ski lift. I'm going to have to go. I
was going to say, as the signal just slowly ebbs out as he goes up. Yeah, best will in the world. Sammy wasn't planning on filming this from the top of a mountain, but yeah, probably just for best that we have you in a very smart looking office there at William Hill HQ. So we're no super sub. We're delighted to have you with us. And James, how are you?
Yeah, all good, thank you. All good, thank you. Obviously, it was a shame some of the racing was off, wasn't it, at the weekend? And we're all getting our fingers crossed for this weekend. But hopefully some nice racing ahead. There was some nice racing at Cork, wasn't there, and Cheltenham. So we'll get all stuck into that throughout the show. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, at least we did have some graded action there on Sunday to discuss. Now, Andrew, of course, a lot of this podcast and a lot of the focus of this podcast is on the Cheltenham Festival. You yourself, plenty of rides and success then at the festival. So just as a general being, what does the festival mean to you when you were riding? Now, what does the festival mean to you?
I think you're hoping you'll find something that'll get you there with about £10 in hand come the festival. Hopefully you've had a few of the handicappers are improving, and your top horses, well, you just want them to stay in one piece. You want to get obviously the big races out the way. We've had plenty so far, but it's a case of just keeping your fingers crossed. And what it means, well, you know, you don't like to pinch on it's the only thing, but from a jockey's perspective, your career, I think, when I look back now, gets molded upon what you did do at the Cheltenham Festival. You know, to win a Gold Cup, I only had 4 rides in the Gold Cup. I finished 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, and I think and 7th. So from that perspective, to think you filled all 3 places, and you rode against some of the best horses, you rode against the best mates, you beat the likes of Doran's Pride and Strong Promises, which when you look back, you think, well, if I hadn't won a Gold Cup, would I be doing what I'm doing now?
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Do you not think? I think you would anyway. I think you're worth your weight.
Who knows?
So from the punditry side of it, but like you said, that is definitely an additional help to fill all 3 places in the Gold Cup. I mean, how many? I would love to see the stats on that for how many jockeys can claim anywhere near that success. So yeah, brilliant, and for the blue ribbon event of racing, for you to have had success in it is fantastic. So hopefully we're going to be able to put that knowledge to good use to see who's going to win this time around. Now, needless to say, we have had to mix up the first section of this podcast because we were supposed to be looking back at the weekend action, reviewing the international hurdle, the December Gold Cup, many other of the Saturday races that were lost, unfortunately, due to the frost. But luckily, though, James, we did have, as I say, Friday at Cheltenham anyway. So what in particular caught your eye from that meeting, just to kick us off?
There was a few, Kate, to be honest, that caught the eye. And even though when you look at the Saturday card compared to the Friday card, it probably wasn't to the same standard, but it did still see some nice horses. And I'll start at the top in the novices hurdle. And a nice horse for Nicky Henderson called Ante-post won the first race. Was actually 10-3, like 100-30 in the betting, drifted out to about 5-6-1. But went out from the front, and I thought Nico de Boinville set some absolutely brilliant sectionals from the front to have all them chasing in behind him. Master Chewy, obviously, Sam was supposed to be on. We could have talked to about Master Chewy, but we'll talk another time about this horse. He's sure to crop up again. But Master Chewy came travelling the best, Attica off the bridle. And to me, Attica won fair and square, even though Master Chewy was travelling lovely, and took the race. Attica's unbeaten over hurdles still. Master Chewy's been a really unfortunate horse. If you look through what he's done so far this season, he finished behind a really nice horse in Picard. He then went to Ascot, went in looking to win the race and fell, and then came to win his race again at Cheltenham and just couldn't get home. He's either bumped into one or two good ones or just hasn't quite had the luck to go and win the race. When looking at some of the anti-post betting, Attica, he probably was not one of them who's going to go and win a Grade 1 race at this stage. He was 50-1 William Hill for the Supreme into 33s. I think personally he'll go to 2 mile 4 because he looks like he stayed up that hill absolutely brilliant and he wants further in time. Whereas Master Chewy, he's a 2 miler. And if you look, if he gets a lenient mark at finishing second a few times and obviously falling when going to win, he could get a really nice handicap mark. And one for any of the 2 mile big handicap hurdles going forward this season, one to really watch out for. So them two in the first were definitely ones to watch out for. Others that I just mentioned, Hidden Heroics obviously won a nice handicap. Well, there was only 3 winners, and we did lose Green Vault for Lucinda Russell, which was really sad to see actually in that race. But if you look at Hidden Heroics, he made it a non-event. He won by nearly half the track. But what I liked after that, Dan Skelton came out and said he's going to be one for the Scottish National. He's going to go up in trip. He looks to love competitive staying handicaps, and I think he's a horse to keep on the right side of. And one I'll just finish with. He's the biggest eye catcher from Cheltenham on Friday for me, and he was under supervision for Nigel and Sam Twiston-Davies. This horse, if you watch it back, was going to be out the back of the TV in 6th, and you wouldn't have seen it at all. Anyway, when the camera was panning on the first 2, he just absolutely flew from nowhere and finished 3rd by about 5.5 lengths. 3 mile 2 didn't even look to be at the top of his capability of his trip. He wants even further. He's only 6 years of age. It was his first run of the season. He's off a marker 136. I think there's much more to come from this horse. And off the back of its first run, it's only going to improve. And I thought it was just the biggest eye catcher of the weekend. You go back and watch that race. How that even finished 3rd, I'll never know. So those are 3 I picked out from Cheltenham on Friday. They're just ones to watch out for going forward. Yeah, because they were good races and they were just interesting.
I would say, James, I was just going to say, Hidden Heroics, he looks the type of horse if you were lined up for a Scottish National, somewhere like the old Race and Post Chase at Kempton would sharpen him up no end because he's not short of pace. And I think he looks to me like a horse who really loves top of the ground as well. He sounds crazy talking about top of the ground in December, but that's what it was at Cheltenham. The way he points his toe and flicks across the top of the surface, very quick and economical with the way he went about things.
Yeah, he wasn't he? Completely. And like you say, if he goes to what was the old Racing Post Chase, and if he goes to Make All as he did then on Saturday, we know that race tends to go to a horse that just blasts from the front anyway. So yeah, on better ground, Hidden Heroics, so watch out for that though. But also, like you say, it would have been great to have heard what Sam's thought himself about under supervision for what he's going to go on to do for staying handicap chases throughout the season, but the notable eye catcher in that staying handicap chase there on the Friday. Andrew, yourself then at Cheltenham, was there anything further that caught your eye?
Yeah, well, Captain Morgs, who was stepped up and tripped with James Boyne, and I think it was he travelled so well through the race, and Nicky Henderson's always thought he's been a bit of such a frustrating horse. I think it's just the fact they found the right trip for him. You know, the fact he's been so consistent over those lesser trips. To me, he might be a little bit what you call soft in some respects, but I just think that he just doesn't really have that turn of foot over 2.5 miles. Whereas over that 3 mile trip, when the gap opened, James got a hold of him, put him in the gap, put him about his job. He quickened up smartly up the hill. If he's going to go for a Pertemps that he's qualified for, you probably wouldn't want to see him hitting the frame too often before the Pertemps. You know, if he did happen to run, he'll probably only run one. The way Nicky campaigns the horses, they're not going to be overly campaigned. So may have one more run before a Pertemps race at Cheltenham. If he got stuck in the mud somewhere, that wouldn't bother you too much. Wouldn't surprise me, and it wouldn't bother me if they dropped him back over 2.5. So it's one way of protecting a handicap mark when you are going to run over 3 miles, and it just sharpens up. You're setting them up, and that's up to the punter to work out what the trainer's thinking. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Hey, you might go and win over 2.5. But I think they've put the cheap pieces on, and he's the type of horse that could still run well in a Thames final.
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, and the art of second guessing becomes even more focused in on when you say the word potence in it, the P word. You really have to try and double bluff exactly what a trainer is going to be thinking for that. But like you say, not to dismiss him winning over slightly shorter. Now, in terms of graded action on Sunday, we're going to be focusing more so on, because thank God Cork went ahead, because we actually do then have some proper market moves in the Cheltenham Festival Ante-post markets to be looking at. So Andrew, I'm going to go back to you for your first stab at this, please, because obviously we had a whole host of really impressive horses at Cork on Sunday. I guess the main focus would have been on Energumene in the hilly weight, but we did have plenty of market moves of some of those horses earlier on. So from your perspective, what did you like most at Cork?
Henry de Bromhead's horse is by Blue Brazil.
Arctic Brazil.
Arctic Brazil. A lot of talk about what he did in his point of points. They've been very patient with him. I like the way he finished off the race. He'd be the type to go 2.5 at Cheltenham without a shadow of a doubt. I like the way he hit the line hard, and the point of points worked out particularly well. You've had horses that finished in behind have gone on and franked that form. And as Henry Romer had said, that there was talk about running him in a 4-year-old point of point bumper last season. That didn't come to fruition. He said, it's the best thing that happened that they didn't run him. He's filled out, he's matured. The twinkle in Henry's eye, to me, said that this horse is certainly a cut above average. Would he go for a Grade 1 race at Christmas? It's too quick to run a horse twice. What I would say twice in 3 weeks as a youngster is too much. Yeah. He may have won easily, but I'm always a big believer that yes, a horse may have looked like he's won well, but he's still run quicker than everything else in the race. And when you've been so patient, I would imagine he might keep it small before Cheltenham. I can't see why they won't be thinking around Cheltenham. Mm-hmm. They may, if he progresses like he wants to, thinking Dublin Racing Festival. That could be the way they could play it. He might dip his toe in the water straight in a graded race then. He certainly caught the eye. And touching on Energumene, he showed his well-being. Yeah. The one thing I wouldn't, if I was Edward Stone's camp, I wouldn't be too worried, because he just let Paul down a couple of times by chipping in. He came up when he really sent him, but when he just let him, he did just pop in the bottom. I think Edward Stone, although you've seen that Energumene's only been beaten once in his career. I think was it 8 or 9 from 10 or 8 from 9 over fences now. He got beaten by Shishkin. We all saw that, but he hasn't met an Edward Stone yet. To me, Edward Stone is he is the real ticket, isn't he? He's just got everything. He travels well. He's economic. He's very well balanced. You know, he made one little mistake there over the railway fences at Sandown and pitched at the back of it. But that's what horses do to balance themselves. That's their way of making sure that he's very sure of himself foot-wise. And Tom Cannon knows him. Like, I just think he'd have a perfect turn of foot for Energumene. That's how I would see it. Paul Townend said he wouldn't swap Energumene for Edward Stone. Well, he is going to say that, isn't he? Yeah, he is going to say that. Why wouldn't you? But yeah, look, you just want horses to get to races in one piece. I'm a big fan of what Ruby mentioned about having what I call classics for chasers, like they do on the flat. Like on the flat, they'll head across to Leopardstown for the big race over there. They'll come across to the Juddmonte at York. I'm a big believer. Why should they only meet at Cheltenham? Should there not be money on the table, £250,000, to make them try and turn up for the big occasion before Cheltenham? So, it'd be great to see them have a crack at each other before Cheltenham, but it won't happen. We're going to have to wait, all being well, till Cheltenham for it to happen. But I'd say that, Energumene, he showed his well-being. He's shortened in the market, but that's all he did do. Yeah, exactly. And like I say, you make the point there about just a few sort of sticky jumps there as well on the way around. But he has now shortened up with us here at William Hill. He's now the even money favourite in Energumene. Edward Stone 5-2. And Andrew, that's a big price. That's a huge price about Edward Stone.
You make a very convincing case, waving a tiny little Union Jack there as well. Looking forward to the festival. And 5-2, you heard it here first. Andrew Thornton thinks that's a big price. And the other horse you mentioned there for Arctic Brazil, he was 25-1 for the Ballymore, now into 10-1 with us here at William Hill as well, which apparently is the race that markets are expecting him to go for. James, yourself, please, your opinions on Cork.
Yeah, what Andrew said was absolutely spot on. Those two, obviously, they were nice. Enegamine, as you said, we saw him go and jump his fences. What I do like about Enegamine, his cruising speed is absolutely brilliant. He sinks horses, doesn't he? And he's interesting with Edwardstone because he's the type of horse that can go with Enegamine, and then it's just a turn of foot after who's got the best. I think at the moment, when you look at it, shorting him into even money was probably the right thing to do because he is well. He's come out, he's jumped his fence, that's no problem. But if you are looking for the value, Edwardstone at the moment, off the back of what he did in the Tingle Creek, now 5-2, he's probably the way to play at this point, isn't it? Until we see him a bit more. Obviously, Arctic Brazil was a really nice winner, short in price, but as you say, the Ballymore, and if they keep it at 2 miles, has gone in as well to 14-1 for the Supreme. So it was a really expensive purchase, wasn't it, that horse? So it's nice to see that's come out and done well. It wasn't a bad day at all for De Bromhead because he had another in there, didn't he, in the Grade 3 novice hurdle with Hidden Valley Lake. I thought this horse showed real proper sustainability over the 3 miles, winning by 8 lengths, and it wasn't a bad race at all. Another expensive purchase, around £200,000 for Rob Corr. I think Rob Corr looks to have quite a nice one in his hands. He battled really well to go and win that race, and he's 25-1 into 8-1 second favourite now for the Albert Bartlett with William Hill. So they obviously like it a lot, that market, and you can see that running well again before the festival. Others I'll just touch on I made a note of. One that was really interesting was for Willie Mullins was Blood Destiny in the 3-year-old maiden hurdle. This horse won with any amount in hand, didn't get asked at all. And that's gone from 40-1 into 14s with William Hill for the Triumph. So quite a big move. But what I look back at this horse's run, and then I look back at some of the form it had before. So this horse ran at Auteuil and finished second before coming over to Ireland, and that was over 1 mile 7 in a hurdles event. And he was beat actually that day by a horse called Beau Zenith. That was by about 3.5 lengths. Beau Zenith had left France as well and gone to Gary Moore. So we haven't seen that horse yet. I was looking through Gary Moore's stable tours, and Gary Moore said this horse first port of call will be the finale juvenile hurdle at Chepstow. So that's obviously dropped from a Grade 1 into a Grade 2 as well this season. So we'll get to see him now. It's a horse who probably like soft ground. If you look at Beau Zenith, it's actually a bigger price for the Triumph market because we haven't seen it at 20-1. But for the Boodles, it's 12-1 second favourite. That could be an absolutely crazy price, couldn't it? I know you're talking about the Boodles, and there's going to be plenty of other horses that are younger that we haven't seen yet. But just off the back of the way a Blood Destiny won and Beau Zenith went and beat that in France, I thought that was really interesting to look at ahead of the Cheltenham Festival market. So, yeah, that was one that really, really caught my eye. And just to finish, another one we've got to talk about was the Grade 2 Mares Novice Chase. Impervious for Colin Murphy, I thought could have been one of the most impressive victories of the weekend, really. Not in the manner of how far it won by, but the horses it's beat and just how much potential this horse has. Dino Blue, Rosie's Hollow, Instit, they're no mugs, these mares, absolutely no mugs. And she went on to take the race, like I said, by 3 lengths from Dino Blue. Dino Blue showed last time over fences just how good she could be as well. And what we've seen from Impervious of what we haven't seen by other mares in that mares chase market at the moment, she's won twice over fences now and showed brilliant jumping ability. And if you actually look, I think she could have won by a lot further. I think she did the job of what she did. I think they're priming her to go to the festival and go and put on a great performance. And yes, she's in the Arkle. Yes, she's in other markets, but I think the mares chase is where she'll go against her own sex. And she's gone from 14-1 into 5-1 second favourite with William Hill. The favourite for that race is Allegory de Vassy. We haven't seen her over fences yet. So for a horse like Impervious to be seen twice over fences and the favourite not to be seen yet, yes, there's a lot of potential with Allegory de Vassy, but at 5-1, she screams big value to me. So, yeah, those are my Cork takeaways, but there were some great performances and just some interesting angles with some of those horses, yeah.
Massive.
James, just going to say, James, Willie Mullins, it's his race. Nobody else need to turn up.
No, I know what you're saying. But it's just when I was looking at different things and different angles with the betting. Yeah, it was just really interesting.
Yeah. To be fair, we've only had 2 runnings of the mare chase, but Willie Mullins has on both of them, and he has had the one too. So it's going to be interesting. But like say, Impervious, I think she'll get the extra trip as well. I thought all she was doing was hitting the line super strong there. But I love the Bo Zenith angle though for the Triumph. That is brilliant for that intertwining form line with Blood Destiny. So very well done, James. Definitely earning the fee this week for going back into those form lines. Now, before we move on to looking ahead to the Arkle from the Ante-post review, of course, a huge talking point this week in the world of racing has been the whip review and the new rules that are going to be in place very shortly. Now, leading jump jockeys have decided to speak up now, quite belatedly so, I think it's fair to say. So, Andrew, just before we move on, can I just get your opinion, please, on why these jockeys are speaking up now and exactly what you think of these whip reforms?
I think it's as much the case, Kate, that how much thought has gone into where we're using we talk about backhand and forehand position. Now, I haven't got a persuade. I like to call it a persuader or a pro-cush. I think whip is antiquated now, personally. I think it's inflammatory. I think we need to get around the mentality, and I think the BHA need to have a huge push on explaining to the public what the pro-cush and what the persuader is there for, because that's what it is. It's foam padded. It's there to encourage horses to give their best and to do their best, and to make sure that the breeding, for me, is the best it can be. You get lazy horses out there. You get lazy horses who need persuasion. We watched an Ergami at the weekend having a good look when he came past the stands about, I saw the exit gate, the next fence he went down to, he made a mistake at. You need it to make sure that their mind is on the job and for concentration and to get the best out of them. If it was in any way, shape or form dangerous or it was hurting the horse, we would not be able to use it and it would have been banned 30 years ago. So that is not the case. From the perspective of backhand and forehand, well, my worry is have it in the backhand position, is hitting it in the right place. You need to hit it round the rump. That's the most important thing, not down the flank, on the rump. And I gave my perspective on it when we got sent, about 2,000 people got sent what they thought about it. I thought the rules were fine. They could be harder and harsher for people who go over the amount of times you're allowed to persuade a horse. Mm-hmm. So from that perspective, I think the penalties could be harsher. As far as I believe that the way to stop people from infringing the rules, take the prize money off the jockey if he goes over the top. Don't disqualify the owner. Yeah. And people will say, oh, well, if that's the case, the owner will recompense the jockey. I've been banned before for striking a horse too many times. Not once for me having 4 days off or for having 7 days off has an owner compensated me. I don't think people believe or realise that if a jockey has 4 days off, 7 days off, the amount of money that costs him for that is equivalent to what he won. I don't think, as maybe slightly different on the flat, but from a jumping perspective, for jockeys winning Grade 1 races that are, say, £25,000 to the winner, he gets 7.5%, not 10. Mm-hmm. So it works about 1,800 quid. Well, if he goes and misses 10 rides in the next 4 days, that is the equivalent. That's a pretty harsh penalty, and it hurts a jockey to realise that those rides that he is missing is going to impinge. He might not get them back. Somebody else wins on them, he won't get them back. So from the perspective of the persuader, I've been believer. I'd still let them use it in the forehand position, which enables them to hit it in the correct place. Be hard. For me, there's going to be a lot of bans, and I agree with the jockeys that, hitting them down the flank, say Paddy Brennan does it. Well, Paddy would say himself, would you want everybody riding like Paddy Brennan? No, it's not. Paddy would say it's not attractive, but he gets the job done. But the thing is, he uses the backhand position when he's using the persuader in the right hand, but when he pulls it through to the left, no, he doesn't. Mm-hmm. Because it's the weaker hand. And to me, it's not the way forward. Yes, it's gone through the loops of speaking to different people, but the fact is, Tom Scudamore has his opinions, and you've got obviously PJ McDonald on the flat. But there was an awful lot of people, and we still don't know, where it was really coming from. Was it the vets? Was it the BHA? Was it the I think the jockeys had very little say. They had to go along with it, and now they've gone along with it. Suddenly the reality has kicked in, and the bedding in period I don't understand. The bedding in period, if a jockey manages to tap a horse in the incorrect place at the moment, and when the bedding in period comes in, he is still going to get banned because he's hit it in the incorrect place. Well, surely a bedding in period is trying to get them to use the persuader in the correct position, but the bedding in period is for the penalties, not about how the jockeys are going to use the persuader. And if they're going to use it, it's going to come above head height, and to me that looks worse. I see the majority of jockeys, the way they are using it now, I find it acceptable. I don't think it looks unacceptable, and that is the most important thing. How does it look?
Yeah, and that's exactly what the majority of this seems to have been based on, the optics of how it looks then. But like you say, Andrew, there, for more probably transparency for who actually has made these decisions would be very beneficial for everyone, and to understand more so why the jockeys have come out now. So plenty of food for thought there. So thank you so much for your views on that, which has been a huge discussion point this week. Now, our anti-post race in focus, as I say this week, is the Arkle novices chase, where, James, we still have pretty much an unchanged market. John Bon is the 5-4 market leader. El Fabiolo 5-1, Sir Gerhard 8-1, Appreciated 8-1, and it is 10-1 bar, as I continue to mention Willie Mullins' horses trying to take on John Bon. So again, another little Union flag that we've got waving there. But what's your opinions on the race at this stage?
We discussed it on the first show, didn't we, with AP, and we talked about John Bon from his run in the Henry VIII. From what we've seen to date, he's going to be very, very tough to beat, isn't he? He's 2 runs over fences. He's looked a much improved animal to me than what he was over hurdles, even though he was brilliant, only being beat by, obviously, Constitutional in the Supreme. And if you come away with any other record apart from that, like from your hurdling, everyone's going to rave about you, which so you should with John Bon. But what he's done over fences, the way he jumps, the way he travels in between his fences, he puts horses to the sword, and no one's been able to compete with him so far. Yes, he's going to take on better horses, like the ones like you've just mentioned that I'll discuss now. El Fabiolo is one that does have form alongside John Bon, doesn't it, from their race at Aintree. What you get with El Fabiolo at 5-1, second favourite at the moment, is that, yes, he hasn't jumped a fence yet, but he's more unexposed than John Bon. So has he got more in the locker? We don't know yet, and that's probably why you're getting a bigger price at 5-1. Appreciate it's really interesting in the market, because obviously we were supposed to go over fences last season, had a bit of a setback, came back for the champion hurdle. I don't know. I know Willie Mullins is an absolute master of what he does, but to get a horse back to come and beat Honeysuckle off no run whatsoever in a champion hurdle was always going to be a task. So I think you get rid of that run and you look back to when he won the Supreme Novices hurdle before, and that was a great performance, wasn't it? And he's always looked like, to me, a bigger horse that can go over the fences. So I'm really, really interested in looking at him. My only slight qualm with Appreciate is that the rest of them are 5, 6, 7. He's a 9-year-old this season. So the actual record of 9-year-olds going to win an Arkle isn't great. So Gerhard looks like he's going to go over fences this season, doesn't he? Another absolutely superb animal. Won the Ballymore last season. Has also won a Grade 1 at the Dublin Racing Festival over 2 miles. He has got pace. He's shown that in the Champion Bumper as well. He's been a superb horse for connections. And obviously with Willie Mullins now, he will decide where he goes. He could go in the Turners. He could go to the Arkle. He's got form over both trips. So again, we'll have to wait and see. You're getting 8-1 about him. Others I'll just whiz through. Phil Dahl was nice on his first performance, wasn't he, over fences? He was a smart juvenile last term. He's 12-1. Flame Bearer is another one for Willie Mullins that's really interesting. We didn't really see much from him over hurdles, but there's been a lot of talk about him. And then we've also got Mighty Potter and Banbridge that do look like they're going to the Turners. But Banbridge obviously did win that Arkle trial at the November meeting. So yeah, there's some honestly top horses that can go against John Bon. We just haven't really seen them yet, but it could be a really great renewal, couldn't it?
Oh, completely. Like you say, it could really work out well. And of course, Andrew, we have so many races coming up then that could well change these markets up. Because I mean, El Fabiolo, he may well go for that novices chase over the 2-mile one at Leopardstown on Boxing Day. But we have the Grade 2 Wayward Lad then at Kempton as well, where we may get to see John Bond turning up in that. So are you expecting any of these markets to change before the Arkle, or what's your play at the minute?
Well, the only way if John Bond got beat,
yeah,
which you can't really see. But whether he turns up there or not, we'll have to wait. Nicky Henderson's not bothered if he doesn't run before Cheltenham. But I that's what, you know, horses are for racing. You know, that's what I'd like to see more. Is to say, I'd like to see money put on the table and people turning up for a clash before Cheltenham.
Yeah.
So it was my way. I wouldn't have the Turners at Cheltenham because that's the problem. If you've already heard, El Fabiolo might dodge the Arkle and go for the Turners. That's not what Cheltenham's about. It's all about competition. You know, too many options gives you too many chances to dodge and dive. And we've already heard that about Honeysuckle, which way she might go. So, you know, I think it's coming to it's getting highlighted more now. It should not be about dodging. It should be about competing either 2 miles or 3 miles. I'd get rid of the one in the middle. Simple as that. But John Bond for me, if Energumen's odds on for a champion chase, then John Bond's good value for a horse in the Arkle. The fact is he good value at 5-4? But I'd rather have an exposed John Bond that I've seen jump fences. I can't see another horse improving past him because he's growing up just every which way you look at him. The way he gets a bit sweaty. I don't worry about that. That's just him. If he didn't sweat up or get a little bit like that, that would worry me. If he walked around like an old sheep, I'd be thinking there's something amiss. Some horses have different characteristics, the same as boxers, the same as people in the weighing room, same as jockeys. Some are quiet, some are bub, some are bouncy, some are nutters. But, you know, the fact is John Bond is what he is. And Aidan Coleman, it was like almost riding him on his little fingers going around Sandown. Just a little check hit, barely touching his mouth, but just setting him up. And just a little squeeze and up he came. You know, so slick and quick. And that race at the Henry VIII at Sandown was only 1.2 seconds slower than Edwardstone. And he did his own thing. And they went a good gallop in both races. But, you know, he looked very, very exciting. And when you think what Constitution at Hill's done, and John Bond was the one who was, you know, still there. He was setting the fractions at Cheltenham for Constitution Hill. But he's just so slick and quick that there is absolutely no negatives with him. Can I see the market changing? No. Even if he goes to Kempton, what's going to take him on? That's there's going to be horses playing for prize money, but there's we say about this, you know, the strength in depth. But you look in Ireland though, in some of the races we saw who took an Energumen on over the weekend. You know, there's only so many good horses out there. You know, the likes of Shishkin, he's going up in trips, so we won't see him. And obviously he's in the same camp. So it's, you know, the novice chase section. We're going to have to wait till Cheltenham.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to have to wait for a proper clash, unfortunately, until Cheltenham. Such is the way that, the jump racing game is going at the minute. But you make a very good point there. And if you do see John Bond looking like an old sheep as he walks around at the start, do be concerned. And that's the quote I'm going to take away from that part anyway. I've never heard that one before, and I will be utilising it. Now, we must look ahead to this weekend's racing where Ascot hopefully takes centre stage on the Friday and the Saturday with the Grade 1 long walk hurdle as the feature race. Of course, Champ is currently the 7-4 market leader with us here at William Hill. And but we are going to get, well, he's actually the 15-8 market leader now from Paisley Park, with those two looking to butt heads again here, which is going to just be fascinating to see. So Andrew, I'll let you lead us off with Ascot, hopefully that we get this weekend, and that long walk hurdle, because if we get the clash that we had between this pair from Newbury last time out again, we're set for a treat.
It all depends how much that race is taken out of either of them. One thing I'd first say is Cheltenham, BHA, be proactive, mild forecast Saturday night. Put racing on Sunday. What is the harm in that? Put a 9 race on card on Sunday. Bring 2 races from the Friday. Put it on the Sunday if it can happen. put it out there, because I see the forecast Saturday night is not going to freeze. Sunday's going to be about 12 degrees down there. So please do that. As far as that race, I think has always been to Champ is very good fresh. Will he be able to take that now? And he does have that slight tendency to jump left-handed, doesn't he? So I'm in a bit of a quandary. Has he grown up? I thought he looked magnificent, absolutely magnificent. And I thought, John Joe's fractions that he set at Newbury were very good. But I do have that slight worry about, both of them having such a hard race. What else can we throw in the mix, Kate? What else? What are the ones further down the list? I know there's only going to be 7. There might only be 6 or 7 runners.
Well, that's the thing. We've got Miranda in next at 7-2, but Miranda out of Mare's company, I'm slightly concerned about. Against Mare's, I give her a chance all day long. Then we have dear old Goshen, who managed to surprise everyone, didn't he, on the big ground? So whether or not, again, but I mean, he did prove himself on good ground last time out. So whether or not he's going to be able to go on this ground again remains to be seen.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'd play the mare. I would, because I just feel that the other two had a real battle, and it's got to. I'm not saying it will have left its mark. It could have left its mark, and it's a quickish turnaround. So the mare getting the it won't be a falsely run race. That's one thing now these races, because Champ will go out and go a good gallop, and that suits Paisley Park. But it could be left to, well, Miranda. She's maybe not the best on paper, but those two had a hard battle, and with a mare's allowance, she could be the one.
Yeah, definitely. So, well, good play then. 7-2 for Miranda. And Andrew makes a good case there, James, about the fact that Champ and Paisley Park did have that battling finish last time out, and they did look pretty tired within that. So how would you play this?
Look, I'd slightly disagree. This is what we love about horse racing. I'd slightly disagree with Andrew in the sense, I agree with they had a tough race, but I just look at Champ and Paisley Park at the top of mark, and I think they're a class above anything else that could take them on. The only slight worry, like you say, Champ does like to go fresh, and I think he won this race fresh the season before. Paisley Park's one of my favourite horses. Honestly, I absolutely love this horse, because how it stays on from where it does, and when it won at Cheltenham, and when it went on that 7-race winning streak, how it just hits that flat spot and comes back to win. It's just so admirable to see. And obviously the story with his connections, and Emma Lavelle's not the biggest stable in the world compared to some out there like your Willie Mullins and stuff like that. So to have a horse like this and what she's done with it over the years, I think it's been absolutely brilliant. And Paisley Park, I know you've got to take emotion out of it, but I think Paisley Park, if the only thing that's going to stop him is if it's really good ground, and obviously if he goes ahead and that, but at about 9-4, I think Paisley Park is he at the moment. I think he's probably the value just ahead of Champ. Look, it was a tough race they both had, and I know it was a great ride by John Joe Neal out in front, but I just think this time Paisley's looking for his 3rd win in this race. He knows how to win round here, and he's just a slight value for me in that race, and that's what I'd be playing. But I just think it's a match race out the top 2 in the market, personally, for me in that one.
Yeah, exactly. And you can think with your heart in this game. It's not, sometimes it won't let you down there, but 5-2 you can actually get, James. So even better.
Okay, even better.
Yeah, you're taking that even more so, as he's just ever so slightly drifted out there from 9-4. Now, James, we're going to throw it back to you just to wrap up our preview of the weekend. For anything else, of course, we have the Tommy Whistle handicap chase, hopefully at Haydock. There is another Premier handicap chase then at Haydock, at Ascot as well. So where else are you looking at?
Yeah, I'll stay at Ascot because there's a few that at this Ante-post stage I do like. In the Silver Cup handicap chase, 300 through 5s, and it really interesting one. There were a couple of horses at the 5-day stage that have come out, so there's lesser runners now. But this horse last season was a really smart novice chase, and look, he's near the top of the weights in this one. But he's a Grade 2 performer, winning back-to-back Grade 2s last season. He's won on good ground at Cheltenham. So he should have no problem with if he does come gun ground at Ascot. He's been seen twice this season. Once was a prep run in Wetherby in a Grade 2 West Yorkshire hurdle, and he was 3rd that day behind Thomas Darby and Presse, who we know are definitely 3-mile hurdlers. They're not chasers. That was obviously a prep run. He went into the Coral Gold Cup, didn't he? And if you look at what Paul Nicholls said about him, then he was absolutely primed to run a massive race. But all that work went to nothing, so he unseated at the first. He shouldn't be any worse off for that, because obviously he's come out, he's been entered for this race, he should be okay. and I think he's around 11-2. William Hill, you'll have the prices probably
6-1.
6-1, even better.
Doing us a disservice.
Yeah, so I think he's really interesting in that race for me. Obviously, you just got to stay on his feet, and hopefully gives his run. And another one, even though he's at the top of the market, it's been fascinating from an anti-post point of view. This is in the Grade 3 Betfair Exchange Trophy. I can only see one winner in this, and that's Pickard. I think it's going to be another big weekend for Dan Skelton. We talked about him on the last show, but Midnight River never turned up. And I think he was just trying to give a chance to everyone anyway. He probably knew racing was going to be off. So he bought Midnight River out. And if you look at Pickard, honestly, this horse came into the betting with a lot of firms probably about a month ago for this race. And he was 14-1 with I think with William Hill as well. Straight into 10-1. Straight into 8-1, straight into 7-1, and then went into 7-2. At the 5-day decks, he went into 5-2. This horse, from anti-post betting perspective, has been absolutely smashed in. But if you look at his form, last season he finished last season with a 5th of 7 in the Grade 2 Supreme Novice Hurdle Trial behind John Bonn at Haydock. If he only lost that day by 9 lengths, finishing 9 lengths behind John Bonn's no mean feat. So he's obviously a nice horse. He showed his true form on seasonal debut this season. At Chepstow and landing quite a strong novices hurdle, I thought, by 5 lengths. If you look at the form of that race, the 2nd, 3rd and 4th have all franked it. He's been given a mark of 130 for this race. I think that's unbelievably lenient. I can't believe that mark. I think he'll exploit that mark, and I think it'll be another big weekend for the Skeltons. So those were the two that caught my eye away from Paisley Park. But yeah, and that would probably be one of my best anti-post bets of the weekend if racing does go ahead.
Oh, I love it. Bullish as they come there from James. 5-2 about Pickard from that very feasible mark of 130. That is in the 330 at Ascot. It's another Premier Handicap, the Betfair Exchange Trophy Hurdle, that is. So love that from that play. Anyway, so some early looks then, hopefully that we will get the action at the weekend. So that is everything from us for this week. But before I let the lads go and get on with their day, Andrew, I need a horse to follow for the rest of the season, or from an anti-post perspective then for the Cheltenham Festival. Where are you looking at the minute? Do you just have to give me one name?
I'll just give you one name, Long Presse. Simple. Venetia Williams. I think she's got herself a horse who can go. Well, he obviously won the rehearsals chase at Newcastle with 12 stone on his back. He's the type of horse that could even take in another handicap before he really goes back up to Grade 1 level, which is the way she often likes to play it. Whether he might go for the Cotswold Chase, I don't know. But just the way he went round there with 12 stone, he giving weight away in handicaps. He's slick, quick with his jump. He made one mistake at Newcastle, but that was probably a miscommunication with Charlie Deutsch. 4th last, easy for me to say. 4th last is 30 to go. But apart from that, I just think he's the one horse that could go through the ranks and be a top flight horse, and he's with the right person.
Yeah, for sure. 6-1 currently for the Gold Cup, but Long Presse to carry it all before him, though, for Andrew and the horse to be watching out for the season. You've been very patriotic on this show, Andrew. We appreciate it. You're giving the British a lot of hope then.
We have hope. There is a lot of hope out there. There's a lot of hope out there.
Yeah. Yes, there's enough good horses, and if we have nothing else, we have hope at least anyway. So that is everything from episode 2 of the Inside Track, brought to you by William Hill. Thank you so much to Andrew and to James for all of their hard work on this show. I mean, it was a trying show in terms of lack of races to review from the weekend. Hopefully we get more racing this weekend. Thank you so much for watching, and we will be back with you next week.